From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
The detective story is central to the grand tradition of mystery and thriller fiction. Sired by Edgar Allan Poe and Arthur Conan Doyle, schooled in the feminine by Agatha Christie, and in the masculine by Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, the detective story is now an icon of our popular entertainment and our literature. But with names like Sherlock Holmes and Miss Marple, Continental Op, and Philip Marlowe, it's a tough act to follow. Not so for Dana Stabenow, who's authored not only one, but two series of detective fiction. Born in Anchorage and raised on a fish tender, which, by the way, is not a menu item at McDonald's, Dana is known for fiction of rugged individualism and an equally rugged landscape. After earning her MFA from the University of Alaska and making her publishing debut with a series of science fiction novels from Ace, she turned to writing a different kind of book, which at the time she imaginatively titled Mystery. It was that book which, when published in 1992, became the Edgar Award winning A Cold Day for Murder and introduced us to the compelling character of Kate Shugak. Now, you must all know Kate, but if you don't, she's an Aleut, which is a native Alaskan. And she homesteads in a wilderness park with her aptly named husky wolf mix, Mutt. She is strong-willed, independent, and in the early novels in the series, quite angry. She once worked in the Anchorage DA's department, but now is on her own as a freelance investigator. She walks a curious beat. Her exploits are poised against the lovely but fearsome landscape of Alaska where, we're told, in a gathering of 4 people, there are 5 marriages, 6 divorces, and 7 political parties. Now, there's murder in these novels, to be sure. There's also potlatch, story knives, jet engines falling off of airplanes, the remains of woolly mammoths, pipeline workers with nasty habits, some good-looking lawmen, and oh yeah, it's really cold up there. Dana has also written 4 novels about Alaskan State Trooper Liam Campbell, and her diverse short stories and nonfiction appear with increasing frequency in major publications. Her latest novel is The Taint in the Blood, which just issued in hardcover by St. Martin's, and it's the 14th adventure for Kate Shugak. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dana Stabenow.
Gosh, I've been busy. I have some prepared remarks for you today, and then I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. I can't remember a time when I did not read. My first memory is of my mother's forefinger slowly skimming beneath the words, "Once upon a time in a faraway land lived a beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony." It was years before I knew what the word ebony meant. It didn't matter. The very sound of it, ebony, was intoxicating enough. In that moment, I fell in love with words, and I have never fallen out of it. Growing up, I lived on a boat, a 75-foot fish tender named the Celtic, that spent her winters tied up to the old fuel dock in Seldovia. Getting on and off the Celtic at low tide remains one of my least favorite memories of that time, especially in the dark and in the winter when the 42-foot ladder was encrusted with barnacles on the bottom and lined with ice at the top. It was, in fact, low tide that Monday night, the October I was maybe 8 years old, when my mother dragged me up that ladder to the dock and down the boardwalk to City Hall. In the basement was one small, musty room. There were wooden shelves against the walls, freestanding metal shelves painted army surplus khaki, and rickety tables, all so crammed and stacked with books you had to turn sideways to get between them. In one corner, 2 first graders spelled out green eggs and ham with every now and then a rousing chorus of "I do not like them, Sam I am." Their parents, still dressed in the rubber boots and headscarves of the cannery worker, were across the room browsing through Samuel Shellbarber and Angela Thurkell. In the heart of the room was a desk, and at this desk sat a woman. She was small and slender, wore a flowered house dress with a lace-edged apron over it. Her graying hair was pinned up in soft curls, and her shrewd blue eyes looked at me over the tops of half glasses. Her name was Susan Block English. Her grandfather, Adam Block, had settled Seldovia in 1884. She was our postmistress. She also founded the Seldovia Public Library, and for many years she alone kept it going. It was open once a week on Monday nights from 7 to 10. Because there were so few books, each patron could check out only 4 at a time. That October evening, my mother introduced me to Susan, said that I'm reading on my own and that I seem to have moved beyond picture books. Susan looked me over with those shrewd blue eyes, and she said, "Well, Joanne, why don't we try her on some Nancy Drew?" Half an hour later, I was curled up in my chart room bunk, book open to the first page of The Clue in the Old Stagecoach. I finished The Hidden Staircase after dinner the following night. Mom said, "Maybe we better check out 4 books next time." Eventually, since I was such a fast reader, Susan broke her rule and let me take home 8 whole books at once. I was the only kid my age in Seldovia who could. I could barely carry them in my little girl arms, let alone get them down the ladder to the Celtic, so I'd stand at the top of the dock and yell for Mom to come out on deck so I could toss them down one at a time and I could climb down safely. If Susan had only known. I'm sure she would have made me read them right there in the library. Let me here quote from Miles Harvey's Island of Lost Maps on the subject of librarians. What a vapid job title. Our culture gives those honorable laborers, the ancient Egyptians and Sumerians variously called learned men of the magic library, scribes of the double house of life, mistresses of the house of books, ordainers of the universe. Librarian, that mouth-contorting, graceless grind of a word, that dry gulch in the dictionary between libido and licentious. It practically begs you to envision a stoop-shouldered loser, socks mismatched, eyes locked in a permanent squint from reading too much microfiche. If it were up to me, Mr. Harvey writes, I would abolish the word entirely and turn back to the lexicological wisdom of the ancients, who saw librarians not as feeble sorters and shelvers, but as heroic guardians. In Assyrian, Babylonian, and Egyptian cultures alike, those who toiled at the shelves were often bestowed with a proud, even soldierly title, Keeper of the Books. That was Susan, my keeper of the books. I dove headfirst into reading, and from that moment on scarcely paused to draw breath. I read everything, in bulk, indiscriminately, whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. From the time I was 8 until the time I turned 13, when boys suddenly became almost as interesting as books. I read the collected works of Georgette Heyer and D.E. Stevenson and Jane Austen and the Brontes and Anya Seton and Neville Shute and 1,000 other writers whose names have long since faded from my memory. I went to school with Anne in Avonlea and Laura in DeSmet and Karen in Cougar Canyon. I did more than go to school. I climbed the Matterhorn with Richard Halliburton. I flew the Atlantic with Charles Lindbergh. I traveled to Europe with Cornelia Otis Skinner. I wasn't even tied to Earth. Or this Earth. I fought for Venus Republic alongside Don Harvey, and I traveled Middle-earth with Frodo and Bilbo. I was on a voyage of discovery into worlds real and imagined, with heroes I came to love and admire, and villains I came to despise and detest, and my life was all the richer for it. The library was my lifeline to the outside world, a world so remote from Bush, Alaska, that to this day we call it outside with a capital O. The year I was in the 5th grade, we took the Celtic to Prince William Sound and trapped mink and marten finner. Mom filled a cardboard box as big as I was with every cheap paperback she could get her hands on. I read every one in it, and when we stopped at remote fish canneries, Mom would let the box on shore and trim new ones with the caretakers. I'll never forget reading Costain's The Money Man that year, I was fascinated with Valerie's clothes and terrified she was going to be wrongly convicted for poisoning Agnes Sorrel, and I kept asking Mom, what's going to happen to Valerie? Is she going to be all right? Mom would smile a mysterious smile and say, keep reading and find out. I realize now she was much happier with me inside with my nose in the book instead of outside on deck tripping over a cleat and falling overboard. This uncensored bibliography did give my mother and Susan occasional pause. For example, when I returned Mark Landon's Anna and the King of Siam and exchanged it for D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. I was 12 at the time. Years afterward, my mother confessed to clutching when I brought that book in the door, and she made sure she was there when I turned the last page and closed the book. I don't remember it, but she swore that she asked me, oh, so casually, what I thought of it, and that I had replied, I don't know, kind of boring, and reached for Robert Heinlein's Green Planets to liven things up again. I suppose it was inevitable that I would become a writer. When you read that many stories, you develop an ambition to write your own. So I wrote stories, beginning as soon as I knew how to write. It began on board the Celtic, when I wrote stories about normal children who lived on shore and made my mother read them. In 1991, my first novel was published. This fall, I published my 21st. When I returned to the library a published author, I came to it as a researcher. As far as I'm concerned, reference librarians sit at the right hand of God. Every book I have ever written has been enhanced and improved by the help of a reference librarian, but their influence in my life doesn't stop there. Do you see this pin that I'm wearing? It's a story knife. I wouldn't be wearing it if it weren't for the Lusac Library in Anchorage, and in particular 2 reference librarians who work in the Alaska Room. The ordainers of this particular universe are Dan Fleming and Bruce Merrill. I was in the middle of researching Dead in the Water, the 3rd Kate Shugak novel, and I was looking up soapstone carving for some reason that totally escapes me today. I was paging through the journals of one of the early explorers when I stumbled across a drawing of a story knife. The accompanying text said that young, unmarried women of the Yukon-Kuskokwim River Delta used story knives, carved from bone or wood or ivory or sometimes baleen, to draw stories in the sand of the riverbanks for their younger siblings. The stories usually featured tales of children who disobeyed their parents and were subsequently killed and eaten by monsters. Being a storyteller myself, I was intrigued. I couldn't find anything else in the reference section referring to story knives, and I asked for help. Dan and Bruce spent hours going through reference works and files and databanks before unearthing one 2-part article on story knives in an obscure arts publication out of New York City. It's a little off the topic, but I have to tell you just a little bit about story knives. All story knife stories begin with a drawn circle, which means the world or the village or simply home. There are symbols for male and female characters, none of whom may speak in the story until their mouths have been drawn in. Each time a character speaks, a small straight line appears next to his or her head to indicate who is speaking. Well, I was born and raised in Alaska, and I had never heard of story knives before this. I called my friend Kathy, an Aleut from Seldovia, and she said she'd never heard of one either. We felt so ripped off. How come nobody had taught us the story knife when we were kids? When A Cold Day for Murder was nominated for the Edgar Award, my publisher flew me to New York to attend the ceremonies, and Kathy came with me. Just before we went downstairs to the banquet, she gave me this story knife. I was wearing it when I accepted the award. I wear it now at every public appearance as an author. It's my amulet, my talisman, and each time I put it on, I think of all the young Yupik girls who tell stories on riverbanks to their sisters and brothers, Yahuwin in hand. There is an axiom in the writer's life that nothing is wasted, that everything is grist for the novelist's mill, or as Alice McDermott puts it, a good writer sells out everybody she knows sooner or later. Those of you acquainted with my work will know that several of my novels feature story knifing. It's my way of paying homage to all the Alaska storytellers who have gone before me, and I have the library to thank for it. confession to make? After going through all of the Nancy Drews on Susan's shelves in about a month, I didn't read mysteries much. My mother loved mysteries, especially those of the British authors like, Niall Marsh, Dorothy L. Sayers, and Agatha Christie. Perhaps in the perverse way of children, because she did, I wouldn't. Whatever the reason, it took her 21 years of patient persistence to get me to read Josephine Tay's The Daughter of Time. It was a revelation. To this day, The Daughter of Time remains the finest crime novel I have ever read. In it, a policeman is confined to a hospital bed, literally unable to sit upright. And from that bed, he solves a double homicide committed 400 years before. The crime scene is 16 generations out of date. There is no surviving forensic evidence, and the chroniclers of the time only prospered through patronage, which could and did color their reporting. And yet, Tay's hero prevails. In that moment of epiphany, I realized you could do anything in crime fiction. As long as A, there was a mystery, and B, by the end of the book, that mystery was solved. You could set a mystery in Egypt at the turn of the last century, or in Rome in 71 AD, or perhaps even on a homestead in the Alaskan bush today. Your detective could be a little old spinster who knitted and compared a cold-blooded killer to the butcher's apprentice, or a smart-ass private eye in a snap-brim fedora in headlong pursuit of a ceramic fowl, ebony in color, or possibly an ex-investigator for the Anchorage DA. When I reread The Daughter of Time in my 30s, I thought, I wonder if I could write a mystery. By then, after extensive reading in the genre, working out from Nancy Frank and Joe to Travis Kinsey and Cadfile, I knew that most detectives were loners with barely a working relationship between them. I knew that a lot of them weren't even professional police officers, but instead Flavian imperial agents, archaeologists, jockeys, salvage consultants, oh yes, and librarians. I knew that most of these were cordially disliked by their official counterparts on the police force, but not all. I knew that despite their all too frequently cynical and world-weary surface, they shared a rock-bottom resolution to fight for the right. And I knew that some dressed in bustles and others in togas, and yes, some even in blue jeans and tennis shoes. I knew them all, because their story on the shelves of the library, of Susan's library, of the Anchorage libraries, of the UAF and UAA libraries. There they were, right on the shelves, waiting for me to read them when I was ready. A while back, my editor asked me to come up with a line that would complete a sentence beginning, "A library is." It's for the back of a t-shirt book distributor Ingram's was going to make and give out. I still have the t-shirt. I looked at it the other day. On the back it says, Sherman Alexie says, a library is a church where every book is my own personal Bible. Jennifer Cruzy says, a library is the only place I know where I can always find passion, mystery, suspense, true love, and a no-fail recipe for turkey gravy. Dana Stabenow says, a library is what keeps us a step ahead of the apes. It does. It does if we read, and if we teach our children to read. Let me leave you today with these remarks by David Owen from his book, The First National Bank of Dad, on why we should. Children who are read to regularly from early ages develop lifelong skills that can't be acquired from a VCR or the Disney Channel. Reading to children helps them become avid readers, and avid readers have lifelong advantages that can't be bought for cash. Good readers do better in school, score higher on standardized tests, hold more interesting jobs, write more persuasive legal briefs, make better conversation, and become less and less likely to write about being bored. Most of all, children who grow up immersed in books develop the ability to answer their own questions. Gradually, they acquire a skill shared by the greatest scholars in the world, the ability to educate themselves. Were it not for my mother reading to me from before I could focus my own eyes on the page, were it not for Susan and all the later librarians in my life, these learned men of the Magic Library, these mistresses of the House of Books, not only would I not be a writer, I wouldn't be a reader. And the horror of that possibility is too much to contemplate, even for someone who writes crime fiction. Thank you. guessing that applause is for the librarians, too. I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe there are, if you go up to the microphone.
Hello.
Hi.
The first place I went with Kate Shugak was to the North Slope. And a few weeks later, I went to the North Slope. And I felt like I'd already been there. So my question to you, and I've been to Dutch Harbor with you, I've been a lot of places with you, and like Nevada Bar, you have a wonderful talent for creating a place. So my question is, do you actually go to all these places, or is this done in the library?
I actually worked in Prudhoe Bay for 6 years, and actually the man to whom that book is dedicated to is sitting in the audience right there, about 5 rows back. I've actually worked on the North Slope for BP for 6 years, so that's where that comes from. When I wrote about Dutch Harbor, I had not been there. I was broke. It was my third novel, and I had yet to be making a living at writing. So I went to the Alaska Room in the Lusac Library, and I looked at everything that they had written on it and every picture they had. And I figured I was pretty safe in writing about it because I grew up in Seldovia, and it doesn't matter how big or how small a fishing town in Alaska is. At rock bottom, they're all very similar. They have the same kinds of people in them, the same kinds of characters. So I felt pretty safe in writing that book. Someone else?
How and how much do you revise?
I used to write, 6 and 7 drafts, but I think writing is a skill like any other. And when you work at it long enough, you get better at it. So now I write a rough draft, and I let it sit for a while, and then I go back and revise and do one more draft, and then it goes into my editor. And then I get a revisions letter from her. If I do, actually, at Taint in the Blood, I didn't get any revisions from her on at all. Yay. She really liked it. And then I rewrite it maybe according to, we fight it out like ladies and decide, which of her suggestions I want to use and which ones I don't. And then it goes back in, and that's it. The last time I get my hands on any major revisions. Yes?
Hello. I have a question about Kate and the series. I was just wondering if you began the series with something in mind about the end of the series, or how things would go, or if you just do it as you go along.
Is there an overall story arc of the whole,
Yes.
all 14 books?
Yes, that's the question.
No, there is not. No, I have been asked that question a lot, especially since Hunter's Moon. Yeah, take a number. No, I actually don't. I have no idea where these characters are going beyond the next book that I write. I think it would be very constraining if I did. If I was trying to hit notes every time that I wrote a book, it would make me. I think it would make the words flow less well, and I don't think stories would be as good. So one book at a time. And I have to tell you, I had no idea Kate could behave like this. I had a really good time writing A Taint in the Blood. Wow. And you have to be free to allow that to happen. I think when you pay attention to characters, when you put you put a really good ensemble cast together. For example, when I was writing Breakup, in the outline I had Kate attracted to the villain, and she fought me every step of the way. And eventually I had to trash 75 pages. I just had to toss it, had to throw it away and rewrite. And that's, I think, why so many of the horrible things that happened to Kate happened to her in that book. I was really mad at her. She wouldn't do what I told her to. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for your praise of librarians, being a librarian in PG County. Are you going to be also doing more of the Liam Campbell ones too?
I will. I just signed a new contract with my publisher. I've written a standalone novel, and then they wanted another Kate Shugak novel after that. But I think they do, in fact, want a Liam at some point. It'll just be a few years down the road. I wrote a short story, a Liam and Y short story that will be out in an anthology next year. And if you're interested, you can go to my website at www.stabenow.com, and I post all the news that I get as soon as I get it there.
When does the standalone come out?
They're saying right now, January, February of 2006. Yes.
My question is sort of related because I was wondering how you keep Liam Campbell and Kate separate in your head. I mean, do you have them sort of like living inside you, or how do you go about writing as a man and then writing?
I was very, very nervous. When the Liam Campbell novels were not my idea. I got a call from my editor, and she said, "When are you going to write me a novel about Chopper Jim?" Wow. You know, any writer will tell you, you don't get a phone call from an editor like that very often. So I didn't want to say, well, I'd never thought about it. No, I wasn't going to say that. I said, well, just a minute. And I called my agent and said, Laura Ann wants me to write a novel about, to break Chopper Jim out as a, in his own series. And he said, that's great, Dana, but you can't do it because Chopper Jim was he was part of an ensemble that was under contract to another publisher. So I was so sad. So I called Laura Ann back and I said, my agent says I can't do this. And then she says, then write another trooper. I'm so apt in this business. So she wanted me to write a trooper, she wanted me to write a male trooper, and I was a little nervous because the Kate Shugak series is the lazy woman's way of writing a book. You write a female protagonist because you are a woman. You kind of have being a woman down. And no offense, guys, but I've never understood a man in my life. So I was very nervous about this. And I think in the writing of the novel, I think what I came to realize was maybe it's not gender that makes us so different, or makes us who we are. It's that rock bottom core of decency. And I think both Kate and Liam have that. That said, I have to say that Kate's totally a rebel. She's completely a rebel. I mean, there's never a rule she saw that she liked or was going to obey. And Liam is part of the law enforcement establishment. He's going to do things by the book. So it's pretty easy to keep them separate. Long answer, sorry.
Could you describe your struggle and triumph in becoming a supporting writer and having enough success?
Sure, I guess. I guess it's a triumph that I'm standing on the stage. So, yay me. And yay you for reading the books. When I was 30, I looked at my life and I thought, I'd always known that I wanted to be a writer, and it was time to fish or cut bait. Did I want to get to be 60 and not have at least tried? So I quit my job on the slope in Prudhoe Bay and went back to school and got my master's degree. And my goal was to be published before I ran out of my savings that I earned on the slope. And I think I had something like $1,100 in change in the bank when my first book was published, which was science fiction, by the way, a book you guys never ever heard of because it fell with an almighty thud in the marketplace and was never heard from again. And then I, just as mostly an exercise, I wrote A Cold Day for Murder. I called it Mystery. I didn't even try to sell it. I copied it off the hard drive onto a floppy and stored it in a box in my father's garage for, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. This was A Cold Day for Murder, the first Kate Shugak novel. And I was writing science fiction then, and also a great Alaskan novel. And when I sold my first science fiction novel, my editor, in that endearing way that editors do, asked me if I had anything else. And that's another question you never want to say no to. Oh yeah, sure, lots of stuff. I went over to my father's garage and started digging through boxes, and I found this disc. By then I changed computers. So I had a hell of a morning getting the information from the disc onto the new computer. Oh God, it was awful. And when I finally did manage to resurrect it, I thought, oh, okay, not bad. And I sent it off, and that was the beginning. They offered me a contract for 3 books, 2 of which I had yet to write. And I said to them, what makes you think I can write any more of these? And they said, shut up and sign. And so I did. That's the short version. Yes.
Hello. And do you have a writing method? Do you write a certain number of pages every day, or do you write every day?
I do write every day. Obviously not when I'm on the road, but yes. I don't mean to belittle the creative spirit that goes into the creation of any art, and how necessary it is that you have to have talent to begin with. But it is also a job. And your publisher has a slot to fill in their publishing schedule a year and a half, 2 years in advance, and you have to give them a product that they can use. You have a responsibility. You signed a contract, you can read English. So I I write 5 pages a day, every day, no matter how long it takes. I sit at my computer until it's done, and then I can get up and go off somewhere. But yes, it's. I think a good work ethic is probably the single most important thing a writer can have. I can't stress that strong enough. A lot of writers, they want the magic button or the secret password. No. Put your butt in the chair, and you sit down at the keyboard and you work until the job is done. I sound like my mother. Yes?
Hi, what made you start with a character with a slit throat?
With a what?
Slit throat.
Oh, I don't know where that came from. I really don't. It's one of those, it's like mutt. It was serendipity. Sometimes the muse knocks and you gotta get up and answer the door. I really don't know why. Now, of course, it's achieved great mythological meaning and Kate's ability to speak for her people and stuff, and it's like, yeah, okay. I needed a reason for her to have left her job in Anchorage and to run for home. And I knew already that the attrition in investigators and police officers that work sex crimes, in particular sex crimes against children, the attrition rate is very high. And most people in that job don't last more than 5.5 years. And that's how long Kate lasted. Sir.
Why do you feel it's necessary for your main character to have a near-death experience in every book?
Is it in every book? Well, she has to be at risk. She's dealing with bad people, and she has to be. She's in her chosen life. She's going to be every time. She's fooling around with the wrong kind of people, and she's definitely going to get in trouble. She pokes her nose into a lot of stuff that she goes for angel's fear to tread. And she gets her nose bit off on occasion because of that. Part of the job, like a cop.
When you start a new book, do you write from the outline? Do you put an outline and do the draft, or you just start the picture?
I am contractually, I didn't write, A Cold Day for Murder had no outline. Just because it's sort of writing exercise. But I have been, ever since, contractually obliged by my publisher to come up with an outline. They pay you for it. So, I like that, so does the IRS. Having said that, when you come up with an outline, it really, they don't really care what the outline, I don't think I've ever written a book that was right on the outline, ever, in my life. I don't think, and they don't care, as long as you come up with a book they like, they feel they can publish and sell copies of, they're happy. So yeah, I write one, but not necessarily from it. I hope none of my editors are in the house today. Any other questions? They're recording. That's why they want you to go over and talk into the microphone.
The first book of yours that I read was Hunter's Moon.
Oh, God. And you read any more?
And I did. I loved it. But I was just wondering, what made you decide to go to such an extreme with the main character, and is Chopper Jim in any danger?
Okay, first part of your question is, Jack dying was not in the outline. It was not in the outline. I wrote that scene as it was. That scene is probably, I don't think it's been changed one single word from the way I sat down and originally wrote it. It was about 10:30 one morning, and I'm sitting there and the tears are pouring down my face. And you know how easy it is to delete something from a computer? Just block, cut. I thought, oh God, I said out loud, I remember saying, I can't do this can't happen, and my hand trembled over the mouse. And I backed away, and I saved everything, I shut down the computer, and I walked away from work. I never do that. I just left it for the rest of the day. And I still think it's probably one of the best scenes I've ever written. I knew that Jack was going to be out of it. I knew Mutt was going to be out of it, because, hey, at Hunter's Moon, I'm ripping off the most dangerous game, and then there were none. And, if you do that, you have to have your hero up against it all along. You know that that's going to happen. And I didn't know that Jack was going to die until he did. I still think, in the overall arc of the series, that it was the right thing to do. No question. Now, as to whether Jim is in danger, I'm not saying. You can just read the books and find out. Was there someone else? Good, we've got 10 minutes left, so you can ask more questions. Oh, here we go.
I have a couple of questions. The first one, may have a follow-up depending upon your answer, and that is, are you related to Debbie Stabenow?
No, I'm not, but I get her email frequently.
Okay. So if you were, I wanted to know whether politics influenced you. The second is, I found you in a very small guide to Anchorage that had a list of women mystery book
City
writers.
Smart.
Yes, that's how I found you. I've never heard of you or any of your sisters. And I've since told everybody who goes to Alaska to read you, but I mean, you were, really esoteric as far as I was concerned. How do you get the word out about you? How do you get publicized? How do all these people know about you?
I don't know, how do you all know about me? How many of you work for Senator Stevens and he made you come down today? Pardon? Word of mouth, I guess. There's an answer here, word of mouth. I hope that they're good books, and readers, we're all fanatics. I'm a reader too. When I find a good writer, I'm pushing him on everybody I know, or her, on everybody I know all the time. I think that's probably the best way. And then of course I have a website, and I have a group of people that call themselves the Data Maniacs, and they're busy spreading the word, but they're way more interesting than people who just read my books. They read everybody's books, and so they spread the word as well. And then of course my publisher. I have a publicist at my publishing house. I don't know, I don't pay any attention to that stuff. I just show up and hope you do too. Yes.
Well, I met you with your science fiction novels, so I was wondering if you were ever going to write any more science fiction.
I want to. I have at least 3 more novels planned in that series, in the Star Spencer series, so yes, very much. It's just that the mysteries right now and the standalone novel is what's paying the rent.
And I love the mysteries.
Yeah, thank you.
Will you be making movies out of your books soon?
I personally will be making no movies out of my books. If you're asking me, I know, I'm being cute. If you're asking me if any films are going to be made out of my books, there is one that's in the works. It's been in the works for some time. As I understand it, this is normal. I've been very, very insistent that if any films are made from the Kate Shugak novels, that it will star Irene Bedard, it will be shot in Alaska, and the screenplay will at least be written initially by someone from Alaska, by a screenwriter from Alaska. And I've got Irene Bedard, and she and the producer who want to do it, both are Alaskans, and they will film it in Alaska. The problem is getting financing for it, because Hollywood doesn't want to shoot films in Alaska. They want to shoot films on a backlot in LA or in Canada. But too bad. There's no way that they're going to make a film of my books that's not shot in Alaska, at least the Kate Shugak novels.
I thought that breakup was one of the funniest mysteries I've read. And I was wondering if that was harder to write than something that isn't.
Oh, no. I was so mad at her. I threw. Are you familiar with the children's book, Alexander's Very Bad, Terrible, Horrible, Awful Day? This is Kate's Very Bad, Terrible, Horrible, Awful Week. I was really mad at her because she wouldn't behave. She wouldn't do like I had it planned for her to do in the outline. It just totally screwed the book up. Man, I was pissed off. So I thought, okay, you want to act like that? Fine. And I just hit her with everything. And here's a little bit of trivia for you. All the bear stories in the book, Breakup, all of them are true. All of them. They all happen to friends and family members of mine. Any more questions? Got 5 more minutes, I'm told, by the lady. Oh, here comes somebody else.
Is mutt real?
Mutt is not real. Mutt is a gift from the writing gods. She wasn't even in my thoughts when I began to write A Whole Day for Murder. She just bounced out on stage, and you notice she takes over every single scene she's in. And no, I don't have my own Mutt, how I wish I did. She's a wonderful character. If a dog can be a character, she's just marvelous. You have to allow for that, though. You have to allow for, when you create an ensemble cast like that, you have to allow for the possibility that wonderful characters like that will show up. Guys like Bobby. He wasn't even in the outline for Play with Fire, and he rolled out on stage in his wheelchair and took over. And I thought, well, okay, you have something to say. And I have to call up the Disabled Veterans of America and say, okay, they're in the forest picking mushrooms, and he's on a wheelchair. Is this possible? I A dead silence at the end of the phone. Those are always fun calls to make. So, thank you all for coming, and I believe I'm signing books at noon, I guess? Something like that? Thanks very much. Oh. Sorry. One more question.
Are there really that many good-looking tall troopers, state troopers in Alaska? I know they're good jobs to move up there.
It's very, very dangerous for me to go into any place where there are troopers because it doesn't matter. The shortest, fattest, most pot-bellied guy is going to back me into a wall and says, Chopper Jim's based on me, isn't he? Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.